Hello, and welcome to the hashtag Here to Hear Keeping It 100 podcast. My name is Damon Naylor, and I'll be serving as your host. I'm the NAFCM Media Guru, and I'm joined by my co host, DG Mon, the president of NAFCM. Hello, DG.
Hello, Damon. How are you, my brother?
Oh, I am great, wonderful, just excited about another episode. That's about it. What about you?
I'm excited about keeping it 100, Mr. Ken Cloke. I'm telling you, let's go, my friend.
Right. So today we have an amazing guest with us, Ken Cloke out of Santa Monica, California. Ken is a world recognized mediator, dialogue facilitator, conflict resolution systems designer, teacher, public speaker, author, pioneer, and leader. He created the Center for Dispute Resolution in Santa Monica, California, and he was trained at the Los Angeles Neighborhood Justice Center. And without further ado, we want to bring in this great guy that we have tonight. Hello, Ken, and welcome. How are
Hello,
you?
I'm good, Damon. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. We have just introduced you formally to our audience and read all of your accolades to them, but now we want to give you a chance to just share anything personal with them that you would like them to know about you.
Well, I think the main thing is that I began working with the Neighborhood Justice Center in Los Angeles and did hundreds and hundreds of community mediations before I began practicing independently. And I still work with a number of community mediation programs, the Sentinel Youth Services Program, and some of the other Asian Pacific American program, and several others in Los Angeles.
All right, awesome. So this just adds to all of everything that you've been doing, just a vet in this circle, in this arena, and we're glad to have you. So we're
Thank
going
you.
to basically, yes, sir, just get right into it tonight. And right off the back, we're looking at how about mediation in a time of crisis? So the first question will be, how would you frame the facilitators of the current public square conflicts occurring today? How did we get to where we are and what's going on today?
Well, first of all, let's just acknowledge that people around the world are suffering as a result of unresolved conflicts. People in this country are suffering as a result of some of the decisions that have been made as a consequence of political conflicts. And what we ordinarily think about mediation as being able to work with are small scale disputes, conflicts between individual neighbors, conflicts between family members, between coworkers, kids at schools, things of this sort. But if we think about conflict as something that occurs on all scales, then we can begin to imagine how conflict resolution could also begin to operate on all scales. So the next scale up is a kind of mid scale, which is community conflicts, school conflicts, organizational conflicts, social conflicts of various kinds that impact groups of people in civil society. And the larger scale are conflicts that take place between political parties, between candidates, between nation states, between large communities of people. And it seems to me that conflict resolution is capable of helping to reduce the levels of suffering that occur as a result of each of those different levels of conflict, and that mediation has the ability to help resolve them and even prevent conflicts in each of those areas. But in order to do that, what we first have to be able to do is to have a sense about how we can help make these decisions, not in a political way in the ordinary sense of that term, but in an interest-based way. So if I can put it slightly differently, politics is fundamentally a power contest. And the outcome depends on the power of the individual participants or the group's participants. But a more advanced form of problem solving is not based on power, it's based on rights. And rights are limitations on the exercise of power. So this is what a constitutional system of dispute resolution looks like. And it is law-based, but the difficulty is that you only have the rights that you're willing to fight for and insist on. And if you aren't willing to do that, power will try to take them away. But both power and rights end up being what we call zero-sum games in conflict resolution, meaning if out of a total of 10, if you get 7, I get 3. But if I get 4, you get 6. And that works especially with power, but also in courts, there's a winner and a loser. The judge decides in favor of one side or the other side. And now if we look at politics, we can see that all of the conflicts around politics assume something that isn't necessarily true. And that is, there has to be a winner and a loser. So what mediation represents is an approach to conflict resolution that is interest-based. And when we shift to interests, everybody can have their interests satisfied and nobody has to be defeated in order for that to happen. Doesn't necessarily mean it can always work out that way, but it becomes possible to do that. And the way that we get there, and the first step, it seems to me, in answering your question, is to ask a question that cannot be answered with a yes or no answer. So here's an illustration. On this call right now that is going out to all of the various people and NAFCM, I can ask 3 categories of questions. Category 1, who's the oldest person on this call? It's going to be me, probably. Who's the youngest? Who's the tallest? Who's the shortest? Who lives the closest to downtown Chicago? Who lives the furthest away? And notice that there is a single correct answer for everyone to each of those questions. And also, the answers arrange themselves in a hierarchy. There's a top and a bottom. There's a better and a worse. There's an oldest and a youngest and an oldest. And so it's like a pecking order gets created out of that. And then if somebody feels like they're getting bypassed by somebody else in the pecking order, they're going to get upset and try to find a way of putting those people down or getting, sort of a better position for yourself and for your folks out of that. Second category of questions. How old are you? How tall are you? Where do you live? And now there's no longer a single correct answer for everyone. There's a single correct answer for each person. And those are the kinds of questions you get asked in court, like where were you on the night of October the 21st or whatever it might happen to be. But there's still a single correct answer, and that's the answer for you. And somebody can come along and say, no, that isn't the right answer. But now we go to category 3. And category 3 questions are like, what issues are you facing at whatever age you're at? What does your height mean to you? What did it mean to you when you were growing up? What do you love about where you live? What do you not love about where you live? And now there are multiple correct answers for each person. In fact, even saying which answer is the right one doesn't make any sense anymore. And those are the questions we ask in mediation. So the question is, what are those questions in the arena of politics? And here we've got a whole bunch of answers, and I can actually give you something that I wrote, which is called 50 Questions to Ask in Political Arguments. And those questions are like, first, what life experiences have you had that have led you to feel so passionately about this issue? Well, now what we're getting is we're not getting a power contest, we're getting a story. And out of a story, we begin to get empathy. And out of empathy, we begin to move away from the idea of the pecking order and, who's on top and who's on bottom and who's got the power and who doesn't. And instead, what we create is a community of people who have equal rights to whatever their experiences have been. And so if we think about it in terms of diversity, for example, there's a big attack right now on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the problem is diversity is just a fact of the universe. And worse than that, diversity is a key element in problem solving. So if you have a simple problem, you can solve it using a simple method, and you don't need a lot of diversity in order to do that. But if you're facing a complicated problem, you need as many different approaches and ideas and backgrounds and experiences and levels of expertise that you can possibly bring to it. And every group of people brings a different set of expertise to that problem-solving experience. Every individual person brings something unique to problem solving. And so complexity gives you better solutions to whatever problems you're facing. And if you get rid of complexity, you're just going to fail at some point because you're not going to be able to solve the problems that you're facing. You're going to come up with the wrong solutions. And we can see that right now with what's happening in the US government. They're taking a sledgehammer to problems that require a scalpel. And they are demolishing programs that are incredibly beneficial and even essential, programs that predict the weather and storms in advance, that can tell us when hurricanes are coming. Those are now axed, they're gone. And in a similar kind of way, we can see in terms of community support, a lot of programs being eliminated that just don't have to be eliminated. Why are they being eliminated? Because power sees diversity as a threat, always. Because diversity means power sharing. And the problem is you don't want to give up your power when you have it. So what do we propose instead? We propose something that is not power-based. We can ask questions like, do you have any curiosity about how other people feel about it? What are some of the key words or phrases that people use that divide us? And what about hot political buttons? What triggers you? And how could we have a conversation with one another where we don't use those words or phrases, or where we try to talk our way through some of those hot buttons and actually get to a deeper level of understanding with one another? But that's a shared approach to creating our future. And fundamentally, that's what we require, and that's what mediation is capable of doing for us if we can figure out how to do it at this large-scale political level.
But one thing I get out of it, or several things, looking at going from, like you eloquently put it, the micro to macro, and dealing with each level and shifting from the politics and power to the interest. And it seems like with the questions you pose, it makes people take self-inventory. And when everyone feels involved, that they're a part of the solution, like they're a part of the whole game plan and what's going on, then typically they're going to buy into it, and they're going to be willing to work to solve, to participate in the conflict resolution and resolving everything and working together so that we all can win. As you stated, there doesn't have to be a loser. We can try to find amicable solutions where we all can win and get something out of it. But yes,
Great, Damon. Great
Yeah.
summary.
So another question we have is, what can mediators do in response to these deepening conflicts that we're experiencing? What can the mediators do?
So I think we're trying to figure this out. I don't think we yet know all the answers to this. We're trying to discover ways forward. One of the things that mediators can do is to participate in the trust network that NAFCM is a part of with Mediators Beyond Borders International. I would say that for people in NAFCM that are around, in communities around the country that want to do something about this, there are several things that are possible. One is we can organize community dialogues. in our own communities, in which we bring together people to talk about how this is impacting them and what we might be able to do together to make this less conflicted and move in the direction of conflict resolution. A second thing that we can do is we can reach out to communities that are being impacted by this and offer conflict resolution services to those communities. But I think the fundamental thing that we have to figure out is how do we change the political system in which these conflicts get aggravated and become worse. And I think that the answer to that is that we now have to think about how to create an interest-based form of politics. And I think that what democracy has been up until now is either power-based or rights-based. But the question we need to ask is, what would an interest-based form of democracy look like? How would it manifest itself? And I think that we can come up with a couple of answers. Here are three short answers. One, if we ask the question, what is politics from an interest-based point of view? Here are three answers. One, it is a social problem-solving process. That's what politics is. It's social problem-solving. So if we want to do effective social problem-solving, what do we have to do? We have to include people who are impacted by the problem, people who know the problem, people who've lived the problem, and have some ideas about what we need to be able to do to solve it. The second thing is that politics, another definition, is a large group, multi-stakeholder consensus building process. So we have to reach consensus on the problems that we need to talk about. Not necessarily, we don't reach consensus on what your experience is or what you believe or what you're going to say, but we honor what your experience is and what you believe and what you're going to say by making that a part of what we need to discuss with one another. And we search for ways of reaching consensus about how we can move forward together. So we shift from me versus you to us versus it. So, and the last is that politics is a conflict resolution process. And that's fundamental to the nature of politics. But here is what I know. I come from a background of having been in the 1960s very active in the various movements that were taking place. And I worked in the civil rights movement in the South and in the North. And what I know, and I think what we all know, is that we did a good job of making legal changes, but we didn't reach people's hearts and minds in a very effective way. And I think that's a part of the reason why we are experiencing these difficulties now. So the question is, how do we reach people's hearts and minds? And I think mediation helps give us an answer to that. And I think community mediation particularly helps give us an answer to that, because people in community mediation programs, working with neighbors, working with kids who commit crimes and their victims, this is heartfelt work. This is helping people open their minds and their hearts to one another. And I think that experience is going to be critical in figuring out how we do this and scale it up to a national level. So what we need to do, the short answer, is to make NAFCM a kind of national basis for conflict resolution in the political arena.
Ken, I just want to, I know time is running. So thank you for laying that out, because as you know, Hallmark 8 is one of our requirements as community mediators, and that's all about creating positive systems change. And our job is to initiate it, facilitate, and educate for it. Because from our perspective, conflict is a good thing. It's growth producing. It's when the conflict is deadly, to be able to recognize it's deadly, it is no longer growth producing, and then have that courage that you've laid out for us, then lean in, find the method to, as you said, reach people's hearts, and reach people's minds, because it's a lot more than just X's and O's and numbers on a board. It is how people feel, and it's how people believe they're seen by others. So thank you for laying out a great response to our call of our 9 hallmarks, but in particular Hallmark 8. Thank you, sir.
This breakdown that we are now experiencing, we have a phrase from decades ago, which is breakdown precedes breakthrough. And I think the opportunity that we are going to be able to see in these conflicts is the opportunity now to restructure at a much deeper level than we were able to before, because people can now see what is broken. And that's the first thing we have to do in order to be able to see what we can fix. So thank you for the question, DG.
Yes, you
Really
have
good
shared so
questions.
much with us. Oh yeah. But like we always say, there has to be a part 2 because this was just the tip of the iceberg.
My pleasure.
Right, right. As always, we thank you for keeping it 100, as we say around here. And thanks for the insight shared. And I know it will resonate with our audience. And I don't know if DG has anything he wanted to close with. But yes, well, like I said, we thank you for coming on. We thank all of our viewers for checking it out and our listeners. But we're closing up this session. Thanks again, Ken Cloke, and we appreciate you. And take care.
Thank you. You too, Damon. Bye-bye.